Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So it looks like you have a few questions about working and living in the United States. It looks like you went to school here and you just have some questions about potential visa options.
Yes. Yeah. So this is my sixth year in the U.S. and I'm on OPT, and I don't qualify for STEM OPT. So I'm just looking at the E2 and the TN visa because I would like to stay here and work. Um, but I'm really wondering, with the MBA, what are the options that would qualify for the TN visa?
So what is your undergraduate studies?
My undergrad was sports medicine, and then I completely went into the MBA.
So sports medicine undergrad and MBA
Mm-hmm.
and any concentration or general MBA.
Just general MBA.
And that MBA was in the USA, correct?
Yes, both were.
Okay. And what is the field that you got your OPT? When does your OPT expire?
September.
And what field was that in?
It's in my MBA in the business field.
So it's a business. What are you doing currently on your OPT?
I'm I'm currently an office coordinator.
And what is it that you want to go into?
Um, I mean, I'm kind of just looking at the TN options, and I mean, I don't really qualify for management business, so I guess I was just wondering, is there anything that I could qualify for?
So it really depends on what it is that you want to do. What occupation do you want to enter into?
Um, I mean, I would like to go into management consultant, but it's with only having 1 year of experience, I feel like it's unlikely.
So management consulting.
Yeah.
So with an MBA, you would immediately qualify. Even without an MBA, you could potentially qualify for TN status as a management consultant. Your undergraduate graduate degree in sports medicine uh, probably wouldn't apply unless that's the field that you're providing consulting services for. But your MBA definitely would qualify you immediately to obtain TN status as a management consultant, as if you received an offer from a consulting company and they hired you in a consulting role, you would be qualified from day one and be able to obtain TN status to work in that occupation.
Okay. So it's just a matter of actually finding a job in management consultant that would hire me.
Correct. If you're able to find, a company out there that's willing to hire you, you would qualify.
Okay. And then this is pertaining to the H-1B, but I just had a question. With being on OPT, would it be the 100,000 fee? Would that be only applied to change of status
That
or
actually,
not to change?
yeah, it actually change of status would exempt you from the $100,000 fee. So if you
Okay.
you are here currently in valid status, like you are under an F1 and OPT status, and you were to change status to an H1B, that would be exempt from the $100,000 fee. You would not have to pay that.
Okay.
So that's an advantage that you would have being inside the country at this time. And you
Right.
probably are aware that the H-1B lottery is open and you are able to, an employer would be able to submit you into the lottery. And that's going on right now in the month of March. So that's something if you wanted to take advantage of, uh, you could do it right away. And the entry process is not that hard. I think if you do have an employer that's willing to put you in the lottery, then I would go ahead and do that. There's really no risk. And if you get into the lottery, then you have the advantage of the H-1B. And with an MBA, that really opens up the types of jobs that you would be able to fill here in the United States with an H-1B. So if you have a current employer who's willing to put you in that H-1B lottery, I would definitely take advantage of that. And the time to do that is now.
I do have a current employer who did want to sponsor me, but when I was looking at the H-1B fees, I think I saw that it was like 5,000 or up.
You're talking about the filing fees for the US government?
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the size of the employer. And yeah, those filing fees can be in the thousands of dollars. But fortunately, you would be exempt from the big one, the $100,000 fee. So
Right.
H-1B is one of the more expensive visas, no matter what. But if you do have an
Hmm.
employer who's willing to assist you with that process and is willing to enter you into the lottery, now's the time to take advantage of that. And this year, the lottery has changed a little bit. Um, Depending on your wage level, is that'll determine how many bites at the apple you get, how many entries you get in the lottery. Also, you have an MBA, so that would also put you in the master's cap. So if, for example, you are an entry level wage, a level one is what they refer to it as, all the way up to a level four wage, you could get from one to four entries in the H-1B lottery, depending on where your wage falls in that wage scale. So the odds of getting in the lottery this year are higher than they've been in many years.
Okay. Okay. That's good to know. And then I guess I kind of ruled out the H-1B just because my current employer is a smaller business, so I don't think they were looking to spend something into the thousands to sponsor me. So I was looking at the E2 visa and considering starting an LLC while I'm on OPT and then investing about 100K into a property solutions company, kind of focused on short-term rentals, cleaning, and property management. And I guess I was just wondering, would that business strategy kind of qualify for E2?
Yes, we've had clients who are in the property management realm and do have E2 visas, and a $90,000 investment would qualify you potentially for an E2 visa. The other component you need to consider with that type of business is how many employees are you going to have? And typically, we say,
Mm-hmm.
at least three full-time workers in the United States through that investment. If you're creating jobs for that many U.S. workers, your investment is close to $100,000. Now, would you be the primary investor here? Would you be have any partners?
I would have a partner, yes,
So, what
but
percentage
I would
would you own?
50%.
So you want to make sure you have a controlling interest, either 51% or 50% with right to control. Okay. You have to
Okay,
have a controlling share of that. And what is the citizenship of your potential partner?
U.S.
Yeah, especially if it's not a Canadian. If it's a Canadian, you can both be 50-50. Uh, but if the other partner is non-Canadian, then you need to be majority or have control of the company.
Okay, and then because I really only have until September to kind of set up this property, if I am not making enough for a full-time income, would that affect the application?
So an E2 is not does not depend on your income. It depends on your investment. Okay.
Okay.
So a lot of investors take no money from their investment. It's investment property, right? They hire other people to run the business for them. And if it makes money and they're able to benefit off that, then they can take dividends or whatever it is from the company that they own. But there is no requirement that an E2 investor work at the property or in the business or take a salary from it either. They actually want you to employ US workers and pay them instead. So that could actually, benefit you. But at the same time, if you are living in the United States on an e-visa, how are you going to be taking care of yourself, right?
Right.
But the E2
Okay.
visa
So I
gives
would,
you the ability to travel back and forth as much as you need while you're managing that investment.
okay. Um, so basically I would just have to have enough to employ a few employees and show that I'm actually contributing to the US economy.
Yeah, they want to make sure you've made a substantial investment and that you're creating jobs for U.S. workers. Also, you need to demonstrate that you have temporary intent. Your intention isn't to stay here permanently. It is tied to the investment with intent to return to your home country of Canada at the end of the investment. The good thing about the e-visa is it's a 5-year business registration and 5-year visa attached to that. And you can renew it indefinitely every 5 years as long as you continue to demonstrate that you're maintaining your ties and intent to return to your home country, in this case, Canada.
Okay. And if I only started with one short-term rental investment, that wouldn't qualify because I wouldn't really have any employees, or would
So you can start small. If it's a new enterprise, then you would have to support it with a business plan. And in that business plan, you would have to show present or future capacity to employ those US workers. So you don't have to hit the ground running with 5 people right away. Okay. If you have to demonstrate over the course of the next 5 years, you will be hiring US workers that you will get to that capacity.
it? Okay. And then, are there any other visa pathways you could recommend that would like fit my goals, I guess?
Well, you have 3 very different ones that you've proposed. So if you want to be in business for yourself, the E2 is the logical one through investment. Okay. And that's a very viable option given the plan that you presented through that type of investment and that type of a business. That is one that would potentially qualify for a new E2 visa. So that's a great option if you want to be self-employed. The TN does not allow for self-employment. So that would not help you in that regard. The TN would be if you do want to pursue a career, and in your case, the one that's a logical fit to your degree would be management consulting. The H-1B
Mm-hmm.
would give you more latitude as far as what you could do, because the H-1B visa, you have to demonstrate that the position that you are filling is one that requires at least a bachelor's degree. Okay. And then that your education is related to that position that you're working in the United States. So that's really broad if you look at it that way. So H-1B
Mm-hmm.
gives you the most flexibility for employment if you were to get into the lottery. And either the H-1B or the TN, if you were to find an employer and they wanted to sponsor you for the green card process to eventually become a U.S. permanent resident, neither of them have a direct path to a green card. But they both do have an underlying process. It's actually a separate process where your employer can then, if they prove that there are no willing, able, and qualified U.S. workers to fill the position that they want to offer you on a permanent basis, that they can then sponsor you for a green card. And
Okay.
that's one of the downsides to the E2 is it doesn't have a path to a green card. It can be renewed
Right.
indefinitely, um, but E2 investors do not have a path to green card.
Mm-hmm. And with the H-1B, I saw that universities and non-for-profits are cap exempt. So how do they still pay the same attorney fees, but it's just not lottery? Like it's just an automatic, you would get it?
Essentially, yes. And some universities have their own in-house counsel that handle that, some do not. But yeah, they are exempt from the lottery. So if you find a job with a cap exempt institution affiliated with an institution of higher education or with an institution of higher education itself, then they could potentially file an H-1B visa for you today.
Okay. And it would just have to be a field that, is there any specific fields that don't qualify for H-1B?
It would have to be
Or,
related to your education, and the position
uh-huh.
would have to traditionally require at least a bachelor's degree for that position. So jobs
Okay.
that are entry level or wouldn't require a college education typically are not going to qualify for an H-1B.
Okay. And then during the 60 days of grace period after my OPT, during that time, am I still able to be a change of status, or is it September that it ends?
Yeah, you have a 60-day grace period either to change status, extend your status, or depart the country.
Okay. Um, and then I was listening to your podcast, and you did say that with the TN visa, it is possible to be denied reentry into the U.S. So if I were denied, how do I enter again? Do I have to get an attorney to file something for me to if I were to just enter as a tourist?
So it's possible to be denied entry to the United States, whether you're on a TN, an H-1B, an E visa, a visitor visa. Anytime you leave the country and you seek re-entry to the US, CBP has the discretion either to admit or deny you. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on what the reason is behind that, that's going to determine what your options are going forward.
Okay.
But most refusals because maybe you don't have the right paperwork or the position you applied under didn't qualify for TN status. That's not necessarily going to prevent you from coming back as a visitor or coming in under a different visa.
Okay. And this is just going off of, I was just trying to look at which TN categories I could qualify for. And I have over 4 years of landscape architecture experience, but I don't have a degree. So would that not qualify me for that field?
Yeah, unfortunately, to be in landscape architecture, you cannot qualify just based on your experience. You would have to also
Okay.
have to have a related education.
I think that's, oh, so when investing in the E2 visa, at what stage must do the funds have to be invested before filing?
They have to be invested before filing. So you can't put the money in a bank account, for example. You have to have committed the funds. So you have to have made the investment, or it has to be in escrow towards the investment. So they have to be fully committed. You can't reserve them for the investment. The investment has to be made, the purchase, the agreement signed, and everything finalized before you submit the E2 visa application.
Okay, so if I were to buy a rental property and kind of put down that, buy the property with the 100K under the LLC and then begin the short-term rentals, that's something that would kind of qualify?
Potentially, yes. If you put down the purchase price, you sign the purchase agreement, then you present where you obtain those funds from. You have to show that those funds invested were personal funds. And if you can demonstrate that that's all committed and the business is operational, then you would be able to potentially obtain an e-visa for that purpose.
Okay. And yeah, I think those are all the questions that I have.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you calling in and I appreciate your questions. They were great. If there's anything that we can do for you in the future, let us know.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, my pleasure. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.